Hey everyone, Brian here from Vintage Classic Specialist. Happy Tuesday, everyone. It is time for another episode of Day in the Life of Vintage Classic Specialist. So why don't we go ahead and get started here. So, not surprisingly to anyone, Rafa kept his momentum up here on the beautiful 68 Ghia, and let's see what he did. One of the major things that he did was, let me get this towel out of the way because it's kind of ugly, is put in the gas tank. Super nice. So again, I think I mentioned before, we use Tom's Radiator Service in Old Town Orange to do all of our fuel tank repairs. And a lot of times at least on Beetles, we just put later Beetles at least, we just put new tanks in them because the reproduction gas tanks now are really good. However, on some cars that have some kind of unique features, then we try and reuse the original one. So in this case, yeah, these Ghia ones have this big, I don't know, port or whatever you want to call it here, that's a breather that's somewhat unique. Beetles definitely don't have that huge tube running across there. So yeah, we preserved this tank. So I took it to Tom's. It had basically rusted through in some areas in the bottom, so they repaired that. And then they put their coating that they put on the whole inside. I don't know, you can really see it's kind of silver looking down in there. Yeah, so they did all that. It's actually been done for a little while. I just finally picked it up this morning, but we got the fuel outlet kit, which is the kind of little elbow that goes into the bottom with a nut and a seal, and the little screen, which you can kind of see it in there. Probably the lighting isn't that great, but let's see. Yeah, sorry, I don't have my light on me either. But anyway, yeah, so that's the fuel filter, and a Beetle is the little screen inside the tank. They didn't really come with external filters, but everyone pretty much adds those routinely. Anyway, yeah, so gas tank went in. That was kind of the big thing today, and it's all hooked up here with, again, its breather and the filling spout and everything there. And of course, we had all the hardware zinc plated, so it looks amazing. It looks better than it did from the factory, in fact. And so yeah, lots of little details like that. Another thing, just more cosmetic than anything, but it's another step in the right direction, is the sill plates. So I don't remember if these came from Airhead Parts, which are kind of the Ghia specialists, or if these might have come from West Coast Metric. I'm not sure. Anyway, one or the other. And they look super nice. And so those went in. More little things, shift knob, just lots of little details like that. Rafa did attempt to put the rear window in earlier and was kind of foiled. So the seal that he tried to put it in with was from West Coast Metric. And Rafa said that the seal just seemed a little fat, especially when you put the trim in there, because the trim, the way it kind of goes into the groove in the seal, it kind of makes the seal even fatter yet. It's very hard to explain. If you know what I mean, then you understand. If not, then don't worry about it. Anyway, and yeah, I think he even trimmed the seal some, which we do have to do sometimes, and still just couldn't get it in. So I think he's going to try again a little bit tomorrow. And then if that doesn't work, then we will try a seal from the Ghia guys. So that's Airhead Parts. So again, all the seals that we have for this car right now came as a kit from West Coast Metric. And usually we like West Coast Metric seals a lot, but nobody's perfect. So we'll find out though if it's their seal being a little too fat or something else. We did. If you guys have been following the channel for a while, you know how much sheet metal we replaced around the base of the window on this car and stuff like that. But before we finally buttoned all that up, we did actually test fit a windshield or a rear window in there, and so we know that one fits. It's not like the opening is misshapen or anything like that, which would be fairly disastrous. It's seems to be seal related. So anyway, we'll get it in there. It's just one of those things in car restoration. Sometimes the things you think are going to take 10 minutes end up fighting you harder than the things that are going to be hard. So if that makes any sense. So yeah, I tried to get that in and didn't quite succeed, but got got closer, and we'll try again. I think that's kind of mainly what he got done on this one today. So why don't we talk about my day a little bit? So I did not get a lot done this morning because I went and had breakfast with an old friend that I used to work with. And then I ran out to Wolfsburg West to get parts for, let's see, I got some parts for the Ghia. I think I picked up a few things for that car. Picked up some things for the 60 Baja Bug. And I think I might have even grabbed a thing or two for this car. So yeah, pretty big trip out there. I spent like $1,200 and got a bunch of stuff for a bunch of projects. So anyway, this afternoon, when I finally got to do some real work, I decided to take a short break from this one because I kind of worked on this car the last 2 business days at least. I worked on it like, I don't know, I think half of Friday and then pretty much all day yesterday. So decided to spread the love around a little bit and give this baby some attention here, this blue 64 Beetle. And let's walk over here and take a look at what I did. So there's its front beam right there. I'll talk about that in a second. So one thing that I did was to clean up its steering box. So guys, this steering box was probably one of the grosser steering boxes that I've seen. And it took a while to clean this thing. Lots of scraping, lots of cleaning with, essentially gasoline, which by the way is a great cleaner. You can say what you will about it, but gasoline is an amazing degreaser. It pretty much melts it. Anyway, so yeah, lots of time scraping this thing and washing it with gas and stuff like that. And yeah, it came out pretty good. More importantly though, it feels like a very smooth box, and at least sort of bench testing it, it doesn't feel like it has a lot of play, a lot of slop in it. So yeah, some time on that. And likewise, its clamp, which was also extremely gross. And the hardware for it is around here somewhere. Here's the bolts for it. So clean those up. I'll probably go ahead and blacken those. And let's see here. I don't know why that was so bright there. Anyway, so yeah, let's talk about the beam a little bit here. So this is an adjustable beam, and I think I mentioned before, the owner wants to subtly lower the car, so maybe like an inch. And so drop spindles would be too much. So typically in that case, what I do is I'll put on an adjustable beam. You can just kind of like level out the arms. Normally they sit down a little bit like that. You can kind of like bring them more close to level. You can even go a hair past level. If you go too far, like you slam it with the beam only, that's when they start riding horrible. But subtle lowering, like maybe an inch or so, that you can do pretty much with beam only, they still ride really good. You wouldn't really notice much difference there. Anyway, so MP adjustable beam, stock width. And guys, MP, I don't know where to start. I feel like I'm always going off on MP, and I'm sorry. We do use quite a few of their parts though. And anyway, I don't know why, guys. I mentioned this before. The holes that come drilled in these beams for these Zerk fittings, I don't know what size they are, but I have never been able to find a Zerk fitting that fits in these holes the way these beams come from MP. I seriously, guys, I have tried every US size, I've tried every metric size. I have never been able to find a Zerk fitting that fits an MP beam. So pretty much what I do is I retap them for a metric 8mm Zerk fitting, which is of course what a stock beam would use. So that was kind of step one of preparing the beam here for use. Is, obviously we have to be able to grease it, and so yeah, Zerk fittings, and then blow out all this, any shavings or anything from putting these in before starting to assemble it. So it's just basically a couple big tubes at that point. So take care of those first, blow out any shavings from tapping it, and then the next thing I sort of moved on to was the adjusters. So the adjusters used to be terrible. Now they're only half terrible. So it used to be that the piece here welded onto the beam itself, that the teeth were really, really poorly defined. And then likewise, the piece that sort of like locks into those was also very poorly defined. And so that's, again, that's how you adjust these, is you, let's see if I can get this to move a little bit here, is depending on where you set that thing, that, determines where the arms are. So this would be like all the way up right here, and then all the way down, it would be swung around this way. But anyway, it relies on, I guess I'd say male and female teeth, if that even makes sense, locking together to maintain that position. It used to be that the teeth on the beam were really crappy and poorly defined, and the ones on the lock itself the same. And I actually had at least one customer who their beam like adjusted itself while they were driving. So pretty bad, kind of scary. So what I started doing at some point was going and like filing the teeth to make them more well defined, so that there was a more positive lock in there. So at some point they fixed the teeth on the part on the beam, and I thought they had fixed this part too, but at least this beam that came, these things again were fairly terrible. So, again, as far as the teeth, how well they were defined and their ability to kind of like lock positively into this part here. So this is after I've gone and fixed them. So I literally am there with a 60-degree file and a Dremel tool, making these teeth actual teeth versus kind of like little, I don't know what you would even call them. They were barely would qualify as teeth. Anyway, so yeah, I spent some time on those, making them so that they're more pronounced and that they will actually lock into it. So I don't have any concern about this now. It's kind of irritating that I have to go and do that. And I'm a shop and I do a lot of these, and so I sort of know to do that. So some random backyard mechanic doing one of these who may not know that happily put their beam together without, taking care of any of those details, and then wonder why their beam adjusts itself while they're driving, which, by the way, could be dangerous. So I'll just put that out there. So that was the next thing. The next thing, guys, I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do yet. I did also buy new torsion leaves, even though it's stock width, and technically I could have used the ones off the stock beam, but I don't know if so. The torsion leaves, if you haven't seen them, it's these long packs of sheet metal basically that stack together and form like a torsional spring, right? And they have, you can kind of see there's like a divot basically drilled into the stack of them, and you have a grub screw that goes in and locks into that divot, and that's what defines where the arms, sort of sit in this direction here. Is they line up with a divot in there. The divot, it has a divot here for the center thing, and then it has another one here. So those holes, or those divots where they are, it has to be pretty reasonably precise, because that again is what defines where the arms sit. And so this one was so far, the divot was so far in that I couldn't get the grub screw to catch it. And so finally I took a big pair of channel locks and I squeezed the arm, and it sort of like popped the seal like that, which is normally supposed to look more like that. It sort of like popped into the seal and put it in sort of a weird position, and now it lines up, but it's in so far that, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, there's a spec for this offset right here for link pin cars, and that's how you shim them and set them up. This is pretty much like at the limit of where that should be, or even a little bit past it. So I might be okay with it, because I think I could shim it and it would be fine. But on the other side, on this side, it's actually under the limit. So the limit of that distance that you see right there is, for this car at least, it's 5.5 to 8.5 millimeters. Guys, this is like 4. This is, I think, was even like 3.8. So not even 4. So like a good 1.5 millimeters or so below the spec. So these arms are just not sitting in the right place. And again, where they sit is 100% defined by that stack of torsional springs, and where the divots in it are drilled essentially into it. So I don't know, guys. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out this upper torsional spring pack and yank the one out of the stock beam that came out of here and slide it in, and then hope that now everything, you know, sort of is sitting where it's supposed to and lines up and stuff like that. And if that's the case, then yeah, I will be contacting my MP supplier and asking for a refund, because they're not really cheap, actually. They're like $100 per set. So you got $200 worth of torsional leaf springs here, and one of those sets seems to me probably unusable. I will update this tomorrow, and if it's not that, then I will happily admit it, but I don't know what else it could be, guys. Again, the position of these arms where they are this way, 100% defined by those torsional spring packs. So we'll see, guys. Again, I'll update you tomorrow on that one, and we'll see. The other option is to flip the leaf spring over 180 degrees and put in my own divots with you know, a drill essentially. I don't really want to do that, and I really shouldn't have to, but again, guys, we'll see. I'll keep posted. So yeah, did that, cleaned up the steering box, blackened some hardware, got a little bit more hardware there left to blacken, and yeah, I think that's it for today, guys. Actually, here, Santiago has been working on it. You can't really see it because it's rolled back in there now. He has been continuing assembly work on the sunroof for the 67 Beetle. And I think it's all adjusted and stuff. We still have to put the felt seal around here, which will hopefully be here tomorrow from West Coast Metric. And then he has to put the under cover on it that has, you know, essentially like the same headliner on a cover, and it kind of like almost like snaps onto it from underneath. So yeah, almost done here on the sunroof, and seems to be working nice and smoothly and all that good stuff. And Renee, our paint and body guy, is still working on the second 68 rusty Ghia, and making some real progress on that as far as the sheet metal from the donor car and stuff like that. So I'll update you guys on that here in the next day or so. So anyway, for today, that is it, guys. I will see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching.